Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Working nights at my day job now, so I'm going to be doing a few more daytime streams here and there. Uh, Probably just get into some games and stuff next week, but this week I actually have been working on learning some new overlay stuff. So I know I'd done a couple of these streams before where I was just trying to share some of the things about making overlays for fighting game streams, mostly, but some of this stuff can be pretty universal. But as I'm learning to do this over the last several months, there's not a whole lot of direct tutorials on how to make overlays that you need for doing your events. So it can be really hard when you start, streaming your local, and you don't want it to look like total butt cheeks. You want it to, look like all the streams that you see everywhere else. So as I learn to do this stuff, I figured I'd just do a stream here and there and share how I'm learning to make this stuff and, kind of reinforce that I haven't been doing this long. I'm learning to program right now. I've only been doing it for a handful of months. So I want to show people that if I can learn to do this stuff, you definitely can. You can do it on your own time, and you can make your smaller local regional streams hopefully look pretty nice. So today, I'm going to be going over making a downtime scene. You see it a lot of majors. Something that has, a little bit of a little text field, and then also a countdown timer. So something like this. See this pretty regularly at events where this way you don't have to do the thing where you just leave up, your player camera on an empty seat while nobody's there, and then you walk away from the microphone to do something, whatever. You see it a lot on all these little streams where it's just, they know they're not going to have any content for 5 or 10 minutes, but they just, don't really do anything to fill that space. And that's a really easy way to lose viewers when, especially if somebody pops in at that moment and they're like, what's going on? Is there ever going to be a match? Blah, blah, blah. So this is one that I made last week, figuring out how to do it. So you can change this text here, blah, 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 blah. You can hide the timer. You can show the timer. You can change the timer. And so on. So that's what I want to be looking to make today. So, I have just kind of a short checklist of what we want this to do. We want to be able to use it with stream control, FARP's stream control. Now, I know there's actually a handful of people I see recently making or talking about making new applications for integrating with your overlays. And they're talking about adding a lot of functionality, things like that, some pretty cool stuff. I know people are working on things to, automatically upload to YouTube and whatnot. For now, Stream Control does everything that I need. I'm familiar with it, so I'm just going to be using that. I'll end up on the YouTube version of this linking to FARP's page where you can find Stream Control when you want to learn how to do this yourself. We want that text message to be something that updates dynamically, something you can change as you want, so you're not just tied to a single static thing. We want to show a countdown timer, and we want to be able to turn that timer on and off. So first, we'll do the stream control side. You see here I have a really basic, from the last time I was doing my stream, just a pretty new, fresh stream control layout. Last time I did this a little bit with the commentators, but otherwise this has not really been altered much from the original layout file that comes when you first download stream control from FARP's site. So we're going to go ahead and just add what we need to integrate this timer. So here is the layout.xml that you can find in, let me close this real quick, in your stream control folder. And in stream control here, you can see that that's the file it's looking for in order to figure out where it's going to put all these buttons and functionality and whatnot. So we're on the MISC1 tab. This will be real quick. We're going to copy and paste a lot of this stuff. One of the nicest parts about learning to do all this overlay stuff is a lot of the code basics carry over from kind of task to task. And once you learn to do one thing, you can copy and paste a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so we're going to have a label there. And we need first, we want to be able to punch in the amount of time that the timer is going to be. So for that, I'm going to recommend a combo box because you can both have text that you can put in, and you can also have it as a drop-down. All right, so this is going to be pretty much all the same spots as these line edits. Started at x60, y70. You want to go ahead and put this editable flag at a 1 so that you can both punch text into the combo box and use the dropdown. All right, and then the options within a combo box, I believe, are called combo item. So I'm going to just put a few generic times that you would have in here. Whoops. Oh, my hands. All right, let's see if that worked. There you go. And then if you want to have one of these as the default for this box, rather than just the first one on the list, I believe the flag is called selected. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, we're going to want this to be a function that you can turn on and off for the timer. Sometimes you want to show the timer. Sometimes, like, let's say it's the end of the night and you want to make the text field just say, you know, thanks for watching or whatever, instead of actually counting down to something where you don't want to show the timer, then you'll want the ability to kind of toggle that timer on or off. So we'll do checkbox. Oh, pasted that in the wrong spot. And that is maybe called checkbox without a capital B. Let's see what broke there. There we go. Yeah, that's probably... Nope, totally did that wrong. What do we got? It is checkbox with a capital B. What did I not do here? I didn't give it an ID. That would help. You know what? We'll just copy and paste this. Make it a little faster. Oh, my hands. Sorry, I like just woke up. My hands are definitely a little slow right now on the typing. All right, let's try this. There we go. Have a checkbox. give it an ID of show timer. That is what's going to spit the 1 or 0 out to the streamcontrol.json we'll be reading from. And now I'm thinking about it, I also forgot to give an ID to the combo box, so let's do that real quick. It's going to be timer length. Need a button. All right, so we're going to have a timestamp button so that we can have a reference frame for when to start the timer from. So that'll be the timer start. Oop, looks like that button is not wide enough. Let's give that a little bit extra here. There we go. So now we got a button to press to start the timer. We actually want to make this a one that actually updates without having to press save. So we're going to put save on click equals 1. This might, the first time you try it, crash stream control. That'll happen every now and then. Usually if you just launch it again, it's fine from that point on. And we also need, let's actually bump all these down a bit. I forgot to make a spot to put in our text. So we need a line edit. A line edit is stream control's name for just a general text box. So this ID is going to be, we'll just call it dtime text. All right, that should be about all that we need. So I'm going to save all that, and we'll just have a quick look at our streamcontrol.json. Make sure those values are in there. There's our timer length. There's our timestamp for our timer start. And here's our text. All right, so that's good to go. All right, so part 1's done. It's ready to go with stream control. So now we got to start the actual HTML. All right, so we're going to have downtime.html. You always, if you're using Notepad++, I don't know how other editing programs work. Not super experienced in this stuff, but make sure you save it as an HTML file first before you start going, just because that makes all the kind of handy light up stuff to let you know if you blew something up work. All right, so HTML. So first we're going to need to include our JavaScript libraries that we use. These are kept in I made a separate folder here within our folder that the overlay is in called JS. For now, I'm only going to worry about the XJS, which is the XSplit framework. You don't need it 100% of the time. It's more for setting things like if you want to set a flag so that when you put the overlay into XSplit, it automatically comes in full screen, things like that. There's some other handy stuff you can do with it, but I'm probably not going to get in that tonight. I'm going to mostly be just adding jQuery and jQuery.transit. Transit is a little library of extra animations and things to be used with jQuery. I honestly do not necessarily remember what parts of what I do animation-wise use transit, so I just include it just to be safe. So. And I always forget what the little character set thing I put on this is, so I'm going to go ahead and just pop open another HTML file here and see what I put there. There we go. Char set equals UTF-8. I'll just go ahead and copy these while I'm here. We'll put a spot for our CSS. I'm not going to do a lot here right now. Whoops, mix those up. That should be 1280. Oh my God, what am I doing? Come on, hands. So you use a simple text right now and go back and add whatever we need to it later. CSS is definitely the thing I'm weakest in, so I'm not going to do too much here. This stream would take forever if you guys saw me moving things like pixel by pixel like I normally do to try and make something not look like total butt. It's pretty bad, actually. All right. So let's make our actual HTML elements first before we format them. So we pretty much just need two things right now. We need a div for the text. And a div for the timer. Make a space for our JavaScript later. Get all of our tags closed. quick, we're just going to make a quick background to lay this stuff on top of so we can see the black text. What am I doing? We'll do new file. This program is called Photo Filter with an RE because it's exotic. This is a freeware photo editor. I know I recommend this on all my streams. If you just need some really quick and easy fixes, it does a pretty good job of emulating, you know, a quick and easy Photoshop. All right. We're just gonna make what would be the background of our downtime scene. So this was, you know, whatever your event imagery is. I have a tournament name. Let's bump that up a little on size. Throw in a little boom. Oop, got the arrow. There we go. We got ourselves a nice little backdrop of tournament imagery. Just spread that guy out a little. Oh boy. Hey, Sec, where are you guys flying to? And where's the 90s rap? It is nowhere, because I've had enough copyright strikes. Thank you very much. All right, now we got a little background here. Just going to put in a placeholder value. Yeah, I forgot my little pound symbol there since this is an ID. Oh yeah. Forgot to pull a little overflow, make that hidden. It's pretty important for stream overlays. That way you don't get a weird weird bar. When you're making text spots in the overlay, you want to make your height and your line height of the div the same. That's what's going to center things vertically within the div. You want to see where these things actually lie. This is a little trick too, since I have no idea how to debug things properly. If you're just trying to figure out where your divs or your spans are lying and what space they're taking up, sometimes I'll just throw in a quick border. There you go. Let you know kind of how much space you're working with if something is taking up the amount of space being in the bounds that it should be in. That's totally not how you do italics. Maybe it's italics? Italicize? I totally forgot how to do italics. We'll skip that. That's a Google the CSS later. All right, so we have our placeholder divs there. Gonna go ahead and do a quick JavaScript. Make sure everything is working here. There you go. All right, so you can see that we can change the values of it. So we're going to need to start pulling values from our stream control.json. So first we're going to need to set up some variables. We're going to need to identify where our stream control JSON file is. Make one for the XML HTTP request, the AJAX function that will be used to drawing information from that JSON. So that is a new XML oh yeah. I can call this variable fresh. What this means is this overlay fresh? Did it just come in for the first time? This is a variable. Remember with variables in general, you can just call it whatever you want as long as you know what function it's for. So this is just to check if the variable or the HTML file is loading for the first time. All right. Make a variable for the values we're pulling out of stream control. I'm going to make a variable for the timer target. We'll use that later. That's going to be for the point in time that our timer will be counting down to. All right. So first, we're going to need to override the MIME type to tell the file that we're going to be using a JSON. going to have an action based on any change in ready state from the XML HTTP request. And we're going to ask that to run a function later on, which we're going to call parse Json. All right, so first function here. Good Lord, got to remember how to write a function. All right. Going to need a function to pull updates from our stream control. So we're going to open our stream control. The third option here, get is similar to HTML forms. That's the type of, I guess, I don't know how to explain get. It's how it's storing the data that we pull. The target for the open is going to be our JSON. And then this true is whether or not it is an asynchronous check on the JSON or not. That's going to be true here usually. Whoop. And we're going to send, which is what is going to store the stream control.json values in this file. All right, so let's go ahead and call that function that we just made, updave. And we also want this to run basically constantly in the background. So we're going to do a set interval. We're going to tell it to run that function every 1,000 milliseconds, aka once per second. All right. Now we need to actually parse our JSON file, which is this function that we're calling right here. We need to make a function to match that. Oh my goodness, I cannot type. All right. So we're going to be checking to see if the ready state value in type equals 4 on an XML HTTP request. A state of 4 basically means it is ready. It's good to go. It's sent the request for the file it's looking for. It's heard back, and the file has came back as green, and it's ready to read it. So our SC values we're going to store in this variable. We're going to use json.parse. The response text of our XML HTTP request. Good Lord, that is a mouthful. All right. So every time it changes ready state, it's going to run this function. If it changes ready state and it finds that that state is a 4, aka it's ready to go, it is going to parse the values that it's pulling from here, from this streamcontrol.json. And then we're going to need to have it do something as well. We're going to have it run a function. We're going to call that function Downtime, and we'll make that in a moment. Now, real quick, if we want to test that all that's working, just do a quick alert. And it's totally not working. So let's find out where we goofed real quick. First things first. Is this function running? No, it is not. Oh, there it is right here. Welcome to debugging. You forgot a semicolon. Spent an hour on it. Still not working. Alrighty. So I am doing something it doesn't like here. I was hoping this, we would skip this part where I spent like an hour on stream debugging things, but let's just take a moment and see if we can figure out where the goof is. Make sure all of our tags are closed here. Okay, for some reason I guess that was just totally not updating when I would refresh the HTML. Oh, I totally know what happened. I was right-clicking the background image, not the HTML. I was refreshing the PNG there. All right. Welcome to streaming. All right, back to where we were. All right, everything's updating the way it should be. So now we need it to update with the text from stream control. So first we're going to set a variable here. Our downtime text equals our dtime text from our stream control values. I believe that's what we called that when we set up the stream control. And there you go. Okay, so that's updating properly. Now what I want to add to this is a check for if this just loaded. So it can put a little bit of a fade out on it. First off, set this opacity at 0 so it has something to fade in from. Need 2 equal signs there. Don't forget, if you're making a comparison on if a variable equals something, you need 2 equal signs. All right, we're going to transition the opacity to 1. Do it over a time frame of 600 milliseconds. You can put whatever you want there. That's just kind of what I think looks decent as a fade-in time. And then we're going to toggle the variable that tells us if it's just been loaded or not to be false. So let's see if this works. There you go, fades in real quick. And we're going to nest this if statement in another one because we also want to be checking if the value that we're pulling from stream control already equals what we have saved in that div. So if the text within the div name text does not equal the variable that is set to the value of stream control, then we want to do this stuff. All right, so if this is not the first update, so if this is not the first update, that means that the text has already been sitting out there displayed. So we're going to want to fade it out, put that opacity back to 0. After it fades out, we're going to call back a function to change the value to what it says now, and then fade it back in. All right, make sure all of our tags are closed here. And hopefully this works on the first try. All right, so it fades in when we launch. And when we change it, it fades out, fades back in. We'll make that initial fade in just a little longer. No, let's find it 1 second. All right, so the first part of having dynamically updatable text here, that's done. So now we're moving on to the hard part. Now we're going to move on to the timer. Excuse me, and I'm going to get some coffee here. All right. Pardon the slurping noises. Here we go. So we're going to need to do a couple things first. We're going to need to check if that little checkbox saying we want to show the timer is checked, and display the timer if it is. So we're going to write a function for that. Call that a timer check. I believe that's what we called that variable. Where's our checkbox? Yeah, show timer. And you don't have to call it the same thing in the HTML that you do in the stream control layout. Just helps make things a little easier to keep things consistent. So if our show timer equals 1 and we want to show the timer, we're going to take our timer div and we're going to fade it in over the course of a second. Or if our show timer variable equals 0 and we do not want to display the timer, I'm going to fade it out. And this fade in and fade out, they are stock jQuery functions that affect the display property. So we're going to actually need to also go up back to our CSS and set our display to none as a default. Alright, so this is going to check if we want to show the timer, and if we do, it's going to fade it in, and if we don't, it's going to fade it out. So we're going to add this timer check function. You know what, we're going to actually make a quick change here. We're going to make our downtime function something that encompasses all of our other functions that we're making. So we're going to change this to getting our text. So we'll run that during downtime, and we'll run our timer check during downtime. Totally not working, of course. All right, we'll get there. Oh, that's because I called it time and not timer up here. Let's try that again. Totally wasn't the fix. All right, we're getting there. Hold on. I'm a smart guy. Real smart guy. All right. Okay, so that's working as intended. It kind of pops in there right away at the beginning. That's probably because we need to set that to none. There we go. All right. So, knocked another part off our checklist here. So now we actually need to make the timer, well, be a timer and count down the way it's supposed to. So we need to do a couple steps to this. First, we need to get the target that the timer needs to be looking for, because we're going to be saying, here's a starting point and here's a time of, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and the end result is going to be what is the timestamp plus that time, and that's where you need to be counting down to. So we're going to get target. That's what we'll call this function. What did we call these in stream control? So we have our timer length and we have our timer start. Oh my god, come on, give me an L. All right, so we're pulling those two values, the length of the timer, which is a text value from the combo box, and the start point of the timer, which is a Unix timestamp. All right, so we're going to need to do a array of the length, because the length is going to be basically just a string. Let's have a quick look at how that comes out again real quick. So it's not an actual measurement of time as far as JavaScript is concerned, because it is not a time object. It's not a Unix timestamp like this. It's just a string of the number 3, a colon, and then 2 zeros. So we need to turn that into time. So what we're going to do is split that string. We're going to split it at the colon. Now our target is going to be a date, which is JavaScript's basically overall time function. So the target is going to be a combination of the timer start times 1,000. The reason for this is the multiplying by 1,000. I believe that Unix timestamps are, now I might be wrong here, don't take this for gospel, I believe that those are measured in seconds from the Unix epoch, while JavaScript is handles its time measured in milliseconds. So this multiplied by 1,000 is to convert the seconds to milliseconds, so that we're working with a consistent format of time here. So for our time, we're going to be combining a timestamp of our start time multiplied by 1,000 plus our time array, the first part of it, which again we broke this split here, whoops, which I totally forgot to close the parentheses for. What this split is doing is looking for the colon in that string and separating each part separated by a colon into different values in an array. So the 3 is going to be the first value in the array, and the 0, 0 is going to be the second one. So the first value is going to be our minutes. So our minutes, again, we're going to convert this into milliseconds, but this is also a measure of minutes, so we need to multiply by an additional 60. And then we have seconds. Which is going to be the second value in that array. And we're going to convert those to milliseconds. All right, so now we have our timer target. Just to see if this worked, we're going to go ahead and plop that. In our timer field. This is going to probably come out as either a long-ass date thing or a timestamp. Either. Oh, because I never called the function. Duh. We're going to add that here. And let's actually put that up here. Oh no, there it goes. Okay, yeah. So now you have a time frame here. Let's see what happens if we actually update this in stream control real quick. So right now it's 10:14 a.m. Central Time. I'm going to start our timer to change that timestamp. And there you go. Now it's aiming at 10:17 a.m. So it's converting the time properly. The target is the current time plus 3 minutes. So we're going to take that out. So we have our target time, and now we need to make it count down, or appear to count down to the target time from the timestamp set by hitting start timer here. So we're going to need one more function here. This function we're actually going to be, you know what, let's start here first. We're going to create the parent function first. So to get the timer, we need to find the current time, which is just going to be the JavaScript built-in function of new date. So that's going to be saying just give us the timestamp of whatever right now is. We need to find the remaining time. You know what, let's actually just take these out, make these global variables real quick. Because this is an overlay and there isn't, you know, an end user the way they would be for a website, you could be a lot more loose with using things like global variables in your JavaScript. If you were making an actual web page and you're using, you know, some of this coding stuff, do not use any of this as an example of how to do it, because there's no like security considerations going into overlays, or even just worrying about some other thing down the road overriding a global variable, you know, that might be part of another section of the site and whatnot. All right, so our remaining time is going to be our target time minus our current time. So now we're going to be changing the text to the timer to be the output of our function comparing the current time and the target time, and then turning that into a string of text presentable as a time. And kind of the trick you'll see in the background going on here is it's not necessarily displaying a clock counting down. What it's doing is displaying a string made up of the time between the target time and the current time, and it's just updating that once per second to make it appear like an actual clock function. Okay, so now we need to make our function to actually make that countdown do a thing. Oh my god, I cannot spell function today. What is going on? I get nervous when people watch me type, even if it's only, you know, the 4 of you. So we need minutes and seconds here. So our minutes are going to be built-in JavaScript map functions of floor and again, we're passing our remainder variable through this function, so we need to add something to tell it that there is an input here. And then it's going to be doing things with that input here. So that remainder is going to be divided by 60 times 1,000, which is, again, turning it into milliseconds, and then also turning it into minutes. We're going to use the modulo operator to divide it by 60, and what the modulo does is it does division, but it returns the remainder instead of the actual answer. And then the floor is bringing that remainder down to a nice round integer. And we're going to have milliseconds there. This is essentially turning it back to seconds, I believe. That's how that's working. All right, our countdown is our minutes variable, which what all this is doing is basically turning all of this back down to just a single value to present as a text string. We have our colon to separate our minutes from our seconds. And we're going to have seconds. And we want this function to return the value of that countdown variable. So, what we're doing here overall is we're finding the current timestamp of right now. We're subtracting that from our target to say what's the amount of time remaining before we hit that timestamp that we set as our target. And then we're turning the text of our timer div up here to be the result of this function. This function is saying that the remainder, we want to turn the minutes. We're basically dividing our timestamp by 60, or rather, yeah, dividing it by 60 times 1,000 divided by and the remainder divided by 60. I don't know how to say that, and I'm not a mathologist, but you can see what it's going on there. So let's see if that is working. Oh, and again, let's not forget to actually call our function here. There you go. Now you can see here, it's a negative value because we set that timestamp at, I believe the last time it was hit was at 10:17 was the target. So let's just refresh that right now and see what it does. There you go. Set it at 10 minutes. And you'll see here, it doesn't start over unless you click that start timer. You can fade it in and out, but it's still aiming for the same timestamp. So, a couple things we probably want to be able to do. We don't want it to display a negative number because that'll be a little embarrassing if you say, we'll be right back in 3 minutes, and then you hit 0 and you aren't ready to come back right at that second, and you were supposed to be back -1 seconds ago. So that's going to be a blow up. And we'll also see as this counts down to below 10 seconds, you're going to see that it'll look a little janky because it's just blink down to 9 without the leading 0 the way you would display time properly. So let's fix that part first. So we need to have our seconds here be patched up just a little bit. We're going to add a 0 to it. Real quick, we'll just make this a value that'll be easier to display it. So now it looks better when it's below 10 seconds, but you saw there, when it's not, you got this extra 0 hanging out. So what we need to do is take this string that we're spitting out we're going to slice it, which is a built-in JavaScript function to basically return a portion of a string. And we're going to set the slice position at -2. So that is telling that, it's basically telling JavaScript that if this string is beyond 2 characters, only return the 2 starting at the right. So let's see how that works. All right, so that extra 0 went away when there's more than 10 seconds. And then when you're down to just 1 value, that 0 pops back in because it's becoming the 2nd character from the right instead of the 3rd character. So now we just have to fix this goofy action right here, right? So what we'll do is put an if here, where if our remainder is less than or equal to 0, we'll do something else. We'll just say, we're coming back right now. And if the remainder is greater than 0, we'll go ahead and display our timer. So let's see how that works. And I totally broke something. Let's see what I broke. Oh, I mistyped remainder. Sorry, it is actually pretty cold in this room. My hands are freezing. I cannot type right now. Here we go. All right. Let's just make this a little shorter just to get to the payoff faster. All right, so we got rid of our goofy extra 0. This looks like a proper amount of time when displayed. And then when it hits 0, we are starting now. We don't go into negative numbers. We don't look silly. So that all looks like it's working as intended. Set that back to 3 minutes. Now here's an entirely separate part, and this isn't super necessary. It's just something that bugs me personally here. Notice when you start the timer, it's at like 2:59 every time, right? Or whatever. You know, it begins just a little bit after the flat amount of time, so it doesn't start at the 3-minute mark. Super minor detail, it just bugs me personally. So what I like to do here is, in our target time, tack on just a little bit extra. It's about 1200 milliseconds. That'll make up for a couple little variations here and there on when it actually checks for time. Let's see how that works. Maybe it needs just a little bit more than that. Throw in another 100 milliseconds. There we go. That do it at each value that we want to use. Looks like it. All right. So there you go. Now instead of being stuck on some janky screen of, you know, an empty pair of seats because there's no players and you don't have a match to show, and you're turned around talking to the TO, asking who's next, blah, 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 now you can actually go ahead and just cut to this scene Um, we'll be right back. Check your show timer, hit start timer, boom, fades in, starts counting down. Throw on some music, and you have a real downtime screen. And it's a pretty minor thing, but it's a much more professional presentation for your event. So I'll be putting this up on YouTube. Like I usually do with these, I'll have a Google Drive link with this bit of code that we just wrote, so you can check it out yourself and play around with it. And I'll also have links to get the stuff that I use shown, where to get stream control from FARP's site, where to grab Photo Filter, the free editor, of course, Notepad++ if you don't already know about it. If you have any questions or if you have any specific requests, I will probably go ahead and knock down an episode of something specific, if it's something I'm capable of doing. Otherwise, I'm also going to be showing this week how to make a ticker. So I've been making some overlays for local Chicago stuff. You can see now I made this same timer scene basically this week. That's kind of why I decided to do these videos. I literally learned how to do this just a couple days ago. Also, probably what I'll be showing later this week is how to do a ticker for displaying some news for whatever's going on off stream. That'll probably be the next thing that I show. So if you want to know when that's going down, follow me here or follow me on Twitter at BGCallisto. Believe that's all I got for today. So I'll take just a minute if anyone in chat has any questions or anything. I'll take a sec to answer that. If I don't see any, then I'm going to go find some breakfast. All right, I think we're good. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will check you next time.